All right. So, despite the move up today, we only closed just a bit over the market maker's expected move to the upside. We did test it, and we ended up closing back below delta neutral, which is pretty significant. I think the end of the day push was maybe an attempt to get us back there. There were bot calls right out to like the 54.15 level, but ultimately that failed. And being below delta neutral into close means that we're likely to see increased volatility overnight. The breakout uh, failed the upper trend, and also failed at a lower high um, than we had on April 9th. So this gives us a bit of a triple top out here, and very likely to see a continuation back to the downside. Obviously, Trump and Basant pulled back the easing on China tariffs that they discussed yesterday. Sorry, one sec. But yes, for now, still remains over last week's close. Um, if that's lost in the overnight session, I would look towards like 53.22 to be the next kind of major downside support, and then 52.47 below that. If we stabilize here and open in relatively the same range, which we technically could, although I do think it's a little bit unlikely. Remember that we do have durable goods in the pre-market tomorrow, and I think Chicago Fed national activity, and jobless claims. And then after market open tomorrow, we're going to have existing home sales. New home sales are actually pretty decent, but permits were bad. So home buying's probably slowing down given yields. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, dollar, after losing some of the gains from earlier this morning, still closed slightly positive. And it was up against the yuan. However, uh, rates at the top end of the curve moved up pretty sharply from this morning's lows, and still closed down on the day, but definitely snapping back as the talk of tariffs was pulled back. Commodities, oil went back down again. Gold's still going down, getting close to the 3,300 level. Um, Silver actually did pretty okay today. Materials, um, and material and agriculture is like all right, but slight drop in broad commodities. Correlation continued to actually move down throughout the day, despite our loss of the high. So people still levering up or well, levering up what they can of the dispersion trade, and it appears a little bit more heavily on the front month. Uh, Carry trade leverage moved up pretty hard, back at 8.18 on the 10-year, and forward yield on volatility actually pretty low into close at 11%. Bond volatility is still pretty elevated, move at 118, and has not fallen substantially alongside correlation, but starting to fall a little bit. Skew was pretty flat last night. And we got a little bit of a drop in correlation between VIX and cash VIX. There's still a lot of volatility shorting, even with the lower close today. And so there's definitely going to be a bit of put exposure to the downside. Uh, Breadth picking up a bit. Obviously, I mean, ES still closed up 159 points today, from the overnight move. So that'll that'll continue to be fairly decent. Although I will say Dow underperformed pretty heavily, NQ did not. Fed fund futures dropping, now down to about zero point 0.4 rate cuts by September, as more and more Fed speakers pull back expectations, and the bear steepener dropping another 8%. So where does that put us? Well, we failed to close the upside gap again, and our breakout above the long-term trend on SPX did not hold. We closed below it and closed below the 5402 level, which is, very important. That's the August low from 2024 on the monthly. To the downside, really the only important test is 5119. But there is a bit of a gap now that we could close to the downside to about 5300. I would say if we close that gap, we're pretty likely to move back to a test of the April 2024 low, which is the 5119 level, and then a failure of 5119 back to recent lows at 4953, 4853. Also, something else notable about our upside move is we did just tap the EMA 30 and rejected off of that. So I would say overall, it looks like bulls are still trying to stabilize and pump this in the face of, very high volatility. I know we are just a little bit over the majority of the put leverage on the chain. If we take a look here. So I think we moved up, like 150 points. So we're about right there, which still puts us over most of it. And, very close to call gamma picking up to the upside, which would happen fairly close to where our top was for the day. However, if we slip back down, put delta is going to ramp up really, really fast again. A big chunk of that put leverage is going to start to fall underwater. So, in a better position at close here than we were at close yesterday, but still in a very precarious one. So Trump speaking at 5 tonight. Whatever he says could and probably will define how futures behaves in the overnight session. So keep an eye on that. Follow up around 5 o'clock and make sure that you know what's going on. And I will see you guys all bright and early tomorrow. I hope you guys have a good night. Later.